Welcome to Nephew and Uncle Basketball Banter, the second show today. Joined by my co-host here, Dave Scholler, and watched some good hoop today and yesterday, and we were just talking about it before we started recording here. So, what was some games that you saw, Uncle Dave?
Oh, I was fortunate. I watched 8 ACC basketball games in the last couple of days, along with some good high school games. I watched a little bit of the end of the Villanova game tonight. They needed that win. I watched a little bit of the end of that West Virginia Kansas game the last couple of days. So I've been snooping around and getting to see a lot of basketball. I watched a little bit of DePaul and UConn, but UConn blew them out pretty early, so I had to get out of that game and go find another game to educate about. And so it's been fun. It's wall-to-wall hoop this time of year. It's great.
Yeah, we're really going to get into the 4 games I watched. I mean, I took notes. I watched every dribble and every shot of these games. Was NC State and Virginia, and then Virginia Tech and Duke, and then also Miami, Boston College, and Cal and Pitt. So we're really going to get into those games heavy. But before we start with that, Uncle Dave, I wanted to just bring up this one stat or event that happened that's kind of insane. So 2 weeks ago, the Bulls and the Hornets played,
Yep.
and they set the record for most three-point misses in a game between the two teams.
Yeah, I saw that.
Last night, the Bulls and the Hornets meet again, and they did the exact same thing. They tied the record again for most misses, three-pointers again, 75. Now, what are the odds that two teams are going to break the record, and it's going to be the same two teams 2 weeks later? I was thinking, I was like, you know what? God coming down and blessing us with holy water, I think. Those are the odds that I would put for that one.
Yeah, I just
Record twice with the same two teams, that's pretty insane right there.
I'm surprised too because both teams have some guys who can really get to the rack but aren't great shooters. So you think to yourself, why would they be attacking 3-point line as much? But again, it's this belief in analytics where people say, well, if I shoot 33 from 3 and you shoot 50 from 2, the games are even. But you get fouled more shooting 2s than you get fouled shooting 3s, and that's the part that the analytics guy doesn't factor in, which is why that, again, total shooting percentage stat that the analytics geeks like to use is totally faulty because it gives you one way of getting 3 points is more valuable than the other, which shows you the formula is slanted. Your mom's a math genius. She can tell you that there's bad math out there too. And that's a lot of the analytics is based in bad math.
Right.
So, and that's some really faulty math. If the score is 3-3 at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how I get there. So to favor one, I know if you hit a 3, it's worth 150 in the total shooting percentage, but it's only worth 100 if you hit a 2 and get fouled and hit a free throw. So, and I would argue with you that getting fouled and hitting a free throw is much better for you because A, it gets the other team in foul trouble.
To me, I looked up 5 great shooters and I wanted to see what their 3-point percentage is. Even the best guys, it's still a low percentage shot. Steph Curry, it's 42% for average. Kyle Korver's 43. Chris Mullin was 39. Reggie Miller was 40, and Klay Thompson was 41%. Even for them, on average, it's not a high percentage shot. You have a better chance of missing and now you have guys that are like, you have your like 6th, 7th guys now, your best player taking 5 threes a game. It's just insane, I think, now.
Well, the thing, too, is those same numbers you would use against anybody from saying they were the greatest of all time. So a lot of times when people get into this, GOAT talk, they always say, well, Kobe was a volume shooter, and to some extent he is, even though we all love him for all those other things, like all defense and stuff like that. Allen Iverson, 42%, things of that nature. But, so to say that, use those arguments against them, but yet be supportive of it when it's a 3. And I know you get an extra point, but you're also giving up a possession a little more frequently also because the shooting percentage is lower. So a bad shot is no different than a turnover in a lot of ways. So it's what us coaches believe anyway. So, but is it a bad shot for Steph if he's got his feet set? No, I'm willing to live with it. But at the same time, most of the guys, like you said, shooting them are not Steph and Klay.
Right. Yeah, no, I think
as evidenced by the Bulls.
Basically, when you look at the best guys to ever shoot the ball, and then you're looking at how many 3-points. So the game 2 weeks ago, the Hornets are 8 of 46 from 3. It's 38 3-point misses, and the Bulls were 14 of 51. You have to think at this point it's like a mental illness almost. I think now with analytics now, I truly think it is because it used to be if you watch college or NBA games, even as 15 years ago, let's just say to be conservative, you had maybe 2 or 3 guys on a roster on a college or
Sure,
an NBA team that would that had the green light to take a 3-point shot. The other guys, they're not
sure.
even looking, or they're not even on the arc. If they were, it's for a dribble handoff, it's for something, the back screen, something like that. Guys did not float out there. Now it's just, we always talked about having, 5 out. You do that if you're a team that's undersized and you have a skilled team, you do that. But now it's
Sure,
just
sure. I've had to play
everybody's
that a
doing
lot.
that.
Yeah,
Yep.
I've had to do it.
I just thought that'd be a good topic to start with, being that
Sure.
we
Well,
talked about what's wrong with the NBA and everything. And I watched
it's
basically the montage of like all the misses. There was a video I saw, and again, it's just unbearable to watch. I think, and also
well.
we've talked about it too at LA Fitness. That's like a lazy man's way of playing. It's
Oh
just a
God, it
waste of
is
free,
so lazy. Well, the funny thing is, you brought up that quote the other day by Mark Jackson. I think the quote by Mark Jackson gets used in the wrong way. Mark Jackson wasn't blaming Steph Curry. He was
Right,
simply saying
right,
that Steph Curry and Clay are responsible for the death of a lot of good basketball, and they're right
right,
because most people can't shoot. Those are two of the top three shooters I've ever seen personally.
right,
So I can't say, statistically whether that's accurate or not, but those are two of the best three shooters I've ever seen. Clay hitting 37 points on 5 dribbles is a good indicator that that he can just flat out shoot. Bird, I've seen hit every shot. Same with Steph. But the thing is, most teams don't have one of those guys. Nevertheless, three. That's why they're two of the best three ever. So
right.
that really makes it really rare for one team to even have one. Nevertheless, two of those guys. And if you watch Reggie Miller and Ray Allen, who are great shooters in their own right, they weren't like those three guys.
Right. Yeah. No. So basically, to put it kindly, now you have poor man's versions of basically what the Warriors were doing there. It was like a once in a lifetime type of thing, and everybody thinks they, have a shot at trying it.
Well,
But I looked at the other top 5 games that had the most 3-point misses. They're all in the last 5 years. The Nets and the
sure,
Rockets in 2019. You look at
sure.
the Hawks and the Knicks in 2022. It's the Celtics and the 76ers in 21, 69. The Mavericks and the Warriors in 23 with 70. So it's all, again, it shows you it's none of these games were being played, 10 years ago even. They're all played within the last handful of years. So
Sure. The
thought
funny
we
thing is, some of those teams are
highlight
bad
that.
teams too.
Right, yeah. So that just goes to show you. So I thought we would break the ice with
Sure,
that there. So
sure,
we're going to get into this NC State and Virginia game, Uncle Dave. A great game.
sure.
UVA comes out on top 70-67. And both teams really came out smoking in this game. NC State started out 4-6 from the field, and Virginia 5-6. So both teams were really offensively humming really quickly. And this kid, Isaac McNeely, 45%.
42% all
Yeah,
time, yeah.
yeah. He had a couple of shots that were just great. Pivot and and a fadeaway in the opening minutes there. There were 17 points scored in the first 4 minutes. Elijah Sanders went 5 of 5 to start the game. When NC
Yeah, I love
State
him.
they had a full court press going. There were 6 lead changes in the first 8 minutes, so it was a really up tempo, really entertaining game to start. And the first 10 minutes, yeah, I wrote down high level of play, high intensity. Virginia, what I noticed about them is they ran the high low effectively a lot of times from the top of the key there, the high post, feeding the low post. I think also Virginia, they're in a tough spot. For those of you that don't know, Tony Bennett, who's been a coach there for how long has he been there, Uncle Dave? Tony Bennett,
15. 15 years.
He resigns right before the season starts, and Ron Sanchez gets the job. But I think what we have to also illustrate is Ron Sanchez has been a assistant for Tony Bennett's for quite some time. He was 15 years his staff, and then he just came back. I think it was in 23. I saw. So
Yeah.
out of a tough situation there, you can't ask for better because all right, Coach Bennett steps down, but you have a guy like Ron Sanchez to plug in there,
Yeah.
and probably he knows the stuff that they were going to run anyway. At NC State, I thought Kevin Keats, he's won 60% of his games, which is incredible. At
Yeah,
NC
he'd be unemployed if it wasn't for that run last year though.
Right, right. Yeah, I think that's
They were gonna boot him out. That's how crazy the world is.
right, right. It just goes
If
to show
O'Connell
you.
doesn't hit if O'Connell doesn't hit a 4-point play off a bank shot, he loses in the ACC tournament and then he's out.
Yeah,
But his contract had a contract rollover last year. If he got to a Final Four, he had to get an extension, and he also got a big bonus, which is in all the guys' contracts. But no, Mr. Keats had that in his contract. He's been a solid coach there. It's not an easy league, as we know.
yeah. 147 and 98.
But like we said, NC State has 2 titles. It's not a place that can accept 147 and 88 at NC State or Clemson or anywhere else. People get a little sniff of winning, then they want the whole kabaz every time. And the thing about this game yesterday was NC State gets out to a 37-27 lead at the half, but NC State, who's one of the weaker 3-point shooting teams in the conference, was shooting to say out their butt would be a lot. They hit a couple of really tough ones late in the clock, and that's not their strength. So even though Virginia was down 10 and they're not a good team to play from behind, I felt like they still had a good shot. McNeely, yeah, he's their leading 3-point field goal percentage guy of all time. Virginia's had the two problems this year. One has been they've been facing a lot of full court pressure. They've been in some big games, even with Florida and Memphis late, but a lot of times the full court pressure in the second half has worn them out. The two big things they've been doing a lot that they never did during Coach Bennett's era was turn the ball over and not rebound it. So yesterday they got pounded on the glass again by 10 boards, but they won the game because they shot well. But they got, NC State had a fake 10-point lead, I like to say, because you knew that wasn't going to keep up. But then NC State did get down to Saunders, who was a beast from San Diego State. He was on that great semifinal team from 2 years ago. He's a really good player.
22 points and was 7 of 9 from the field. So yeah, he's a great game.
He's been really good the last 3 or 4 games. I'd like to see him throw the ball into him a little more in the post. They had Rhodey struggled in the first half, but in the second half he got going a little bit to help.
He had a big three to tie it at 46.
Yeah,
he had a big three yesterday. Yep.
But Virginia really needed that game because now they're 1-1 in the ACC, and NC State. That's a game where you're up 10, you're feeling good, and all of a sudden you're going home on New Year's Eve and you're not feeling good about your night, and you're going to let it ruin your night as a coach. This is what happens to you when you coach during holiday time, which is what basketball is. It ruins many and
both teams, 8 and 5. You're kind of you're looking to get your season to the point where you separate yourself from being close to around 500 here. So it was really an important game for both teams there. So
did you see the Chris Webber-esque play on the last possession for NC State down 3?
Yes,
I know. The kid calls a timeout, and they don't have any, and the whole Virginia bench goes crazy, and they didn't call it.
I wrote down, NC State, excellent trap. That was almost a tie-up, went down 3.
But then the Virginia guy misses the free throw.
Mm-hmm.
They're up 3, and NC State gets the rebound. The kid tries to call timeout, and they don't have any. And so then they take the court 3, and they miss. But just a big win for Virginia. They really needed that game to get to 1-1 because you don't want to start chasing it early on in the ACC season. The ACC is not going to get a lot of teams. The net rating system, which is ass backwards, and the Ken Palm and also the crap already has them behind the 8 ball. So, I mean, to me, you got to be well above 500 even be considered. And plus, the way the ACC tournament is structured, you don't want to be at the bottom because then you got to play extra days. And if you do have to win the ACC tournament to qualify,
we have also. I think that it's important to highlight this stat. Virginia, they started 2 of 8 from 3, and then went 7 of 9. So it just goes to show you can go from Death Valley to Mount Everest in this game here. Illusion. So
that's what we always say. The shooting is the great equalizer. When you're doing it well, it hides a lot of ills. When you're not doing it well, everything looks bad.
There was some great plays that the one that I wrote down here. You got Rhodey hits a 3 to put Virginia up 65-55, and it was off a great screen at the top of the key there. So Virginia ran some good steps to get some shooters open. They did that.
Virginia does run some great stuff, some good pin down stuff. Right now, Rhodey is playing point. And kid though transferred from Kansas State last year. He's a good player too. But right now, they're still struggling with a little bit of their identity at the point because when Coach Bennett left, the Florida State transfer. Wanted to save his year of eligibility, went right back into the portal for next year. So they would have had a 6'9" point guard for them. And Virginia's offense really is very heavily point guard reliant. If you look over the last 3 or 4 point guards they've had excellent point guards. They had Guy, they had Beekman last year. They've had some great point guards over time, and so it's such a point guard dominated offense. So
considering the situation they got dealt with, I mean, Coach Bennett literally before the season starts, he steps down, but to be where they are, and play as well as they did yesterday, I think that you got to feel pretty good if you're a UVA fan. I think so.
Yeah, the frustrating point was that the first game versus SMU on December 2nd, they're up 45-41 with about 4 minutes left in the game, and then they lose by 10. They got blown in the last 4 minutes, but SMU plays the exact opposite tempo that they do, so that was kind of a wild situation. But the nuts and bolts of the ACC schedule is underway in full blast.
Yeah, so that was we'll wrap that up there with NC State and Virginia. I think that these are both teams that when the tournament rolls around, anything could happen.
NC State has a good squad. NC State's got a good squad.
So we're going to transition, Uncle Dave, here to Virginia Tech and Duke. Virginia Tech 5-7, and going into this game 0-1 in the conference, and Duke 10-2. 2-0 in the conference. Now, Duke, they handle business. They win 88-65. What I wrote down and what I noticed here is the first 4 minutes of this game were pretty unbearable. The score was 2-2. Both teams.
It was pickup. Yeah. Pickup.
Cooper Flagg has Duke's first basket. And then for about 3 minutes here, He
And
doesn't touch.
score.
Yeah, he doesn't touch the ball at all. And
Yeah,
then the next bucket that Duke has is an N1 off of it for him, and he hits the
for
foul
him.
shot.
Yep, yep.
And I'm sitting there thinking, and I think you alluded to this earlier too when talking about Duke. If you're Coach Shire, you have to sub four of those guys out and be like, all right, you guys are playing like zombies. The plays that they're making there, when Cooper Flag's not getting the ball, it's turnovers, it's bad shots. You have to say
Just
to
come
those
down one
guys,
pass and a jack.
yeah, you have to say to those guys, hey, you're taking a seat next to me. And
Yeah,
this is why.
yeah.
It was a game, obviously. They're just a more talented team. They're at home. So they wind up getting the win. But one thing also that I looked up and noticed, Mike Young, his sixth season there at Virginia Tech, he's 97 and 73. He's done pretty good there.
Yes, the thing is, the last couple of years, like 4 or 5 years, he's had really good guards, but Couture graduated. The other kid he had with him the year before, that this is the weakest of his teams. He always gets open shots for his guards. Early in this game was Cooper Flag and a little bit else. I do give Shire credit for one thing, although it almost backfired on him because he wanted to get the tempo where it was because this is not a good Virginia Tech team and they're not deep. And Duke is very deep, and Duke's best trait this year is their defense. So I give him credit for trying to wear the other team down and getting the tempo where he wanted it. But really, until about 10 minutes left in the game, their offense did very little. The defense won in that game. And like you said, it was Flag early and D late. And that's how they won that game. That is better. But like you said early on, though, they didn't get anybody involved. A lot of just pull up jump shots. A lot of and again, the funny thing you noticed about all these games yesterday, all the home teams struggled early. And every one of them did not come back and win that got down by a lot, which we'll talk about in a minute when we get to these other games, except for the game tonight. So, there's been a lot of teams, and like when we talk about the Tech Notre Dame game, we talk about the Wake Syracuse game was a wild game. Pitt Cal was a wild game. Stanford Clemson was a wild game, but the teams that were home got off to slow starts. In most of the cases, they came back and lost. But in one of the cases, they came back and won. So when we get to those games, but yeah, Duke looked a little bored yesterday, but the tempo was going to win it for him. He's fortunate that it wasn't a good Virginia Tech team, which you probably wouldn't have played that style then, because Virginia Tech usually buries it, and they missed a bunch of open shots themselves. So
yeah, Cooper Flag, he scores 12 of Duke's first 18 points, 5
yeah,
or 6 from the field. So, he's a study.
he's a study. Just turned 18.
Yeah, I know, incredible. And the rest
Incredible.
of the rest of the team up until that point had 6 points and was 2 or 13. So
Absolutely.
this is the type of game though where you have that kind of start. And let's be honest, during tournament time, if you're at a neutral site and you have a tougher opponent, that could be a problem right there.
Oh yeah, you're down 15-2, and all of a sudden your young guys feel pressure.
Right, exactly.
The
So
kid,
this is
the kid, the
this
kid
is kind of a
Connor
trap game that way.
Kneppel didn't get off, and that hurts them. When he's their second scorer, and when Proctor, they got to get something from Proctor or Kneppel early, and that way you get them going, because then they have to cheat to them and opens up the game for Flag. But and then Malachach was not catching his lobs. He only caught a couple of them. He wasn't being offensively productive, and
with him,
they got some good players.
Yeah, with him, he's a great athlete and great at altering shots at the rim. His hands and his feet though are a little concerning for me, though. I think
he's not as good as Lively was.
Yeah,
he's not as good as Lively or the kid that's in the Charlotte Hornets now.
Right.
From the last 2 years, he's not as good as
right. He's still a little raw, so they could still they'll work on him and he'll get better around the rim and things like that because they're going to need him for some lobs and some drop steps and things like that. But so Duke handles business though, like they should have.
Yep.
That was an easy one for the Blue Devils there. Although, like I said, a concerning start. I want to talk about Uncle Dave, this Boston College Miami game, which was a wild one. I watched it.
This totally wild game. Great game.
I mean, my goodness, so incredible. Bill Courtney, though, he's been on Miami's staff since 2019. This is his first game, like we talked about last show with Coach Larinaga stepping down. So obviously tough. You have New Year's Day, January 1st. You have your first game. And I got to say, the beginning of this game, Boston College looked like they were out drinking all night. I mean, this was a very slow start for them.
Coach Grant, old Winthrop assistant.
Yeah, and Boston College wound up winning this game 78-68. But Miami starts the game on a 15-4 run in the first 6 minutes of this game.
He had an 18-point lead at one point. It was crazy.
Yeah, it just really
the young guy kid from Miami was posting up inside. He was looking like a beast.
He had a fantastic game. Yeah, but Miami. What's crazy about them is this just goes to show you, Uncle Dave, with this NIL and the portal stuff right here. The 2024-25 Miami Hurricanes, this year's team, has only 3 returning players. 11 guys are newcomers.
So you have Louisville this year.
Totally different roster from what you had.
Yeah, it's like Louisville.
Point out today, this is the largest comeback for BC at home in the history of the program. down
Right,
19 at
exactly.
home, and came
Yep.
back and won. So
Yeah,
we witnessed history today.
we did. And I
What?
tell you, BC, it's a great comeback, and Coach Grant does a good job. I tell you, Miami is missing their best player today. He's still a little banged up, but they're missing him. But it's still a great comeback, down 18. But Miami was dominating early. I mean, they were slapping them around. It was like a physical mismatch. But great comeback for BC, and that's the only home team that actually came back and won their game. I mean, Pitt didn't get down that much, but a lot of these games, blowout starts.
Like you said, really slapping them around. They were pressing full court. They had a
Yep.
steal in the backcourt. They go up 20-6 at one point. And I got a Bethea for Miami. He has one of the best finishes I think I've ever seen. He had like an up and
Yeah.
under on an N1 there
Yeah.
that put Miami up then 23-7. Yeah, another backcourt turnover for BC. And this kid, Matthew Cleveland for Miami, just seemed to be at the right place at
Yeah.
the right time for almost everything. Defensively
He
or
was
offensively, he was hitting threes, he was pull-up jumpers. Defensively, he was getting after it.
he's tough.
And Miami at that point, they're up 25-7 in this game. Lynn Kidd, he makes his first 5 field goals. I mean, that's
Yeah.
difficult to do, even if he's got the highest field goal percentage in the ACC. And Miami at that point, they're up 32-13,
Yeah, to
and
kill
they're
him.
really rolling. And the game changed for BC when they put Chad Venning in, scored 10 points in a row for BC,
Yep.
and gave them some physical presence inside. And that's when the game and the momentum really started to change.
Did it switched.
And they get the game down to 13. That's really when the game changed. And the energy for BC, the announcers were even saying it, they
Yep.
really flipped the script there on Miami, and they outplayed them the rest of the game then and wound up winning. Lynn Kidd, he's hitting jump hooks, finishing
Yeah.
around the rim, really kind of was a throwback to, interior post players when we used to have those.
Sure.
And also this kid, Fred Payne for Boston College, he had a really strong drive and converted N1. He cuts it to
Yep.
4. Joshua Beadle,
Yep.
a couple big shots here too. There was this play that you had, what was it, late in the game here, where McFarland, he forces a bad shot for BC. Miami
Right.
winds up getting a layup on the other end, and they go up 2. And then he winds up redeeming himself by hitting a 3 to put them up 1. Just kind of a crazy back and forth game.
It was.
Also, this kid Elijah Strong for BC he had a good game as well.
Yep.
Just a really entertaining one there for sure.
Just kept trying to come back, and then they'd wind up losing. Similar thing happened in this Wake Forest Cuse game yesterday. Wake gets out to a huge lead, 18-2 early. Syracuse comes back, takes the lead because of Salas, and does a great job with the big kid. So they start to take the lead, but Wake's notorious this year for not having a bench. They get 2 of their best players in foul trouble when they're down 4. They both pick up their 4th foul with like 10 minutes left, and so you think this game is over. And this is my old quote I always say: you're always deeper than you think you are. As a coach, I've never gotten that wrong. You always think you're this deep, and then you realize, you know what, I could go maybe one guy more. And that doesn't mean every night. Every game is not for that, but it's a thing that us coaches have. We a lot of times we see that negative side. It's in the back of your head, but you always are deeper than you think. And this game I was sitting there thinking of that quote myself yesterday, because Wake brings these 2 kids in who never play. They're down 4. They leave. They're up 6. All of a sudden, the European kid comes in. Salas gets a couple more big buckets. The bench takes the lead for them, and they finish out the game. And Wake winds up getting a great win. And this is a big year for Wake. If Copes Forbes doesn't get it done this year, he's going to be looking for a job, because Wake has had 2 or 3 years missing on the bubble. And so they go lose that game yesterday. And this is where the net is the dumbest thing ever. Because the net will only count that game for Wake if you lose it. So they'll say, well, Syracuse isn't good. It's not a top 1 quad win. So then why are we even playing the games at this point? A win on the road in the ACC is still difficult, especially in the Dome. Now, the net doesn't take that into consideration. You tell me the net knows it's hard to play at the Dome? And Red Autry did a great job getting his guys to come back. Old Syracuse player there. Very nice player in the 90s for the Cuse. I feel for him because the fans were giving him grief, but these are the same fans that were booing Boeheim 2 years ago. So I don't feel for the Syracuse fans. I'm rooting for Red Autry because I always liked the Cuse. But just such a crazy game early, and they took the lead, like I said, and Wake goes back to the bench, takes the lead back, and finishes the game. And the kid Salas from Wake, big-time effort. I mean, his shooting percentage wasn't great. He was 7 for 18, but he got in the paint on the pick and roll a lot, got a lot of drop-offs for dunks, did a fantastic job. And this is a game where Wake needs to win this. You say it's early, but you can't go lose this because, Cuse's big guy is going to be good, this kid Lampkin. He could be a pro big guy if he just gets in a little bit better shape. The Cuse has some pro players on that team. They got to be obviously they got to execute a little better, but this is a game that Wake has to have because and they come back and get it, even though it's only January, actually December 31st yesterday. They needed that game because you cannot, when you're already on this negative net with the ACC, and the Wake has lost at the bubble several years in a row, and they got a good team. They got most of their guys back. They should be good.
And then this next game we saw here, California and Pitt.
Yep.
California 7-5, 0-1 in the conference against Pitt, who was 10-2 going into
Cal looked good.
1-0.
Cal looks better than I thought.
Yeah, Mark Madsen, their coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Former
Old Stanford player.
Right, former NBA guy.
Yep.
Backup center for the Lakers when they were winning with Shaq and Kobe. So
sure.
Scores.
And they got Stojakovic's kid.
Yeah, he shot 14 foul shots, Peja Stojakovic's son there. His son looked pretty good. I got to say, got big shoes to fill with his father, though. His father.
Oh, God. His dad was such a great shooter. Oh, my God. Plus, dad was big. People don't realize how big dad was. He was like 6'6", but solid.
Yeah. Peja, he was not light in the ass or anything. He was really.
No, he was strong. Peja was strongly built.
He was a guy who can get to his spot on a mid-range shot.
Yep.
And I think if he played today, he'd be even better, I think.
Oh, God, yeah, because the game is so open. Oh, my God.
In today's game, I think you could play him. You could play him at the 4. Back then, he was a 3, Peja, but
sure,
could have easily played him at the 4. And you got this other guy, Cameron Corhen. He really stood out to me. He hit his first 3 field goals in the interior.
Sure.
What was it? Yeah, for Pitt. Yeah, and then you had at the 6-minute mark, Jeremiah Wilkinson hits a 3 to put them up 8. Yeah, Pitt gets a dunk to cut the lead to 9 with 1:17 left. And the last part of the first half was absolutely insane. Coach Capel gets a technical foul.
I saw that.
After Zach Austin
this is the longest 2 minutes and a half I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, he throws the ball at Devin Campbell, and Cal hits a free throw from from that technical foul. And Pitt then winds up having an offensive foul.
Yep.
Then Jeremiah Wilkinson gets a tech after he complaining to the ref that he thought he was fouled. So it was an absolutely insane ending.
The refs just disgraced the last 2 minutes and a half. The refs totally blew everything. It's terrible.
It was 44 fouls called in this game.
Yep. But also they took about 10 minutes in the last 2 minutes of the first half. The refs decided to put their imprint. That was disgusting.
Yeah, it was totally insane.
This game was weird too because I said this yesterday. I think Capel might be the perfect guy age-wise for this new system of coaching because every year he restocks his team. Plus, he's got the big kid, the foreign kid, SOS Graham. He's a very good big kid. He's got the kid Leggett was out. His best guard was out. But he's got good players. And he goes out and gets big, long guards. He gets older guards. And they're going to be dangerous. That's an NCAA tournament team. You come in there, you go deal with Pitt in that nice, beautiful arena they have. It's built like Stony Brook's arena. You go in there. That's a tough place to play. They could give. They'll be not as good as Duke, but they could be the team, I think, on paper that could give Duke a little run for their money. SMU style-wise, but Pitt just gets older guards, and they bother you. They had the same thing last year. Pitt is not an easy team to beat. Pitt is a difficult out, and like I said, he is perfect for this modern-day thing. He goes and recruits a new group every year.
Really, and then you had to end this half, you have a loose ball scramble on offensive rebound by Papa Amadou Conte, and he kicks the ball out to Austin for Pitt and winds up hitting a 3. And, then Conte splits a pair of free throws, and it's just so at the half, it's 42-38 in favor of Cal. At one point, Cal led this game by 16. So it was a little bit like
they're all the same.
Miami game.
All these games were the same yesterday. It's like in that Wake game. Wake's up 18-2 at Syracuse.
Lowe really stood out for Pitt. I thought he had a lot of shots where it was almost like Jalen Brunson, step back around the mid-range. So he's a really talented player and plays with, a good amount of grace and fluidity. So he looked really good. Sure. He was 4 of 11 from the field, but he was 5 of 5 from the free throw line. Kept attacking. Lowe, he had 2 straight buckets off dribble handoffs. Right. Really good. Step back jumpers from the mid-range. And you had from Pitt, this was an insane stat right here. You have at the 15-minute mark, you have from 15 minutes to 9, Pitt goes 6 minutes with no field goal. And at the end of that 6 minutes, they're still up 5. It was just like an insane type of game.
Yeah, and, but that's the thing. Like when you're taking this many outside shots and everything's like one pass and a jack, you can have 5 or 6 minutes.
Right.
And everybody loves the outside shot. And unfortunately, my teams have had to play that way for a couple of years now. But, it's very unreliable. You'll have a lot of 2 and 3 point quarters, for in a high school game, and you can't do that.
Right. Yeah, no, you had this what was it? Brandon Cummings, he had a big shot that wound up putting Cal up by 10.
Cal's better than I thought, and so is Stanford. Like I said, in SMU, I knew it was going to be good because when you look at their splits and their numbers and their pace of play, he's the old coach from Gulf Coast, so you knew they were going to play fast. This Tech Notre Dame game I watched, it was a little bit weird because the coach at Notre Dame, you could see last year he was going to start to get it done. He came over from Penn State. He was going to start to do it, but Notre Dame's had this concern the last couple of years. It's just how they guard. Georgia Tech, who's really at the bottom of the league, even though they got a couple of good guards. They give up 53% field goal percentage. You're not winning games like that. So, they lose a game to Notre Dame, and Notre Dame loses to Tech, I should say. And like I said, the Miami BC game we talked about, Pitt Cal, the Stanford Clemson game. Clemson goes on, wins the battle of the fast break points 12-0, and has a 19-point free throw advantage. And that's the difference in the game. So when you look at stat sheets, and you say to yourself, well, how's this happen? Well, 12-0 in the fast break and plus 19 on the free throw line, plus 9 on the free throw line, I should say. That's 21 points right there. And so even though both teams shot about equally the same, easy baskets kill you. I mean, for the side that loses. Then the Carolina Louisville game, it's a tie game the whole night. Louisville goes on a 14-2 run to close the game. The kid Smith hitting a lot of threes for Louisville. So that's a big win for Louisville because the old coach from college at Charleston is another Winthrop guy, is the head coach now at Louisville, trying to bring it back. Like I say, he won a college at Charleston last year. Now he's at Louisville, so interesting situation. Now he's in the deep end, whereas at college at Charleston, they have more resources than everybody else in the league. But now at Louisville, he's going to be one of the many with resources. So we'll see how he does. But he gets a whole new squad, basically like 8 out of 11 guys, I believe, are totally new on that team. But this is going to be the modern way, I think. And that's why this ruling of the net and the Ken Palm is totally stupid. These teams are still don't even know each other. We won't know till the end of late January, the tops, who's any good or not.
Jesus,
And so this is why this net and this other stuff is crippling to a team. Like, why bother playing after that? Yeah, so the ACC, a crazy day, but still a good day, still a fun day to watch. The rest of the week for the ACC is, I want to say this Wednesday, they're playing again here, but tomorrow's got a good slate of games. Let me show you about tomorrow's games. Villanova with a necessary win tonight. Thank God for them. They got a W. Tomorrow, like some of the smaller conferences are getting back in. All right. So like Winthrop's League is getting back in, the MAC's getting back in, Patriot League getting back in, some of the Big Ten tomorrow, things of that nature. And then as you'll see later in the week, all the Big Ten gets involved. And then because you forget tomorrow, Rutgers, Indiana, good game there. And then later in the week, I want to say Friday, you're going to see a lot of the local levels getting back in. Marist, Iona, Quinnipiac, Georgetown is playing Xavier. It's a good game. St. John's with a bad loss to Creighton the other night, by the way. That was not a good loss. Saturday, you got Florida and Kentucky, SEC back in full swing. Florida, Kentucky is going to be a great game. It's on at 11 a.m. on Saturday. That's can't miss TV right there. That's an incredible game right there because Kentucky's good, but Florida's backcourt is nuts. North Carolina at Notre Dame, Boston College at Georgia Tech, NC State at Wake Forest. This is going to be awesome. So Stony Brook's got William and Mary at home. Tennessee's hosting Arkansas. That's going to be fun. A lot of good games coming up this weekend. Miami at Virginia Tech. I mean, it's going to be a blast. Butler's at St. John's. That's not an easy game itself. Duke's at SMU. That is going to be a blast. There'll be a lot of craziness in the stands that day. Anywhere Duke goes, you get everybody's best game. So that's going to be a little bit nutty. Let's see, let's see a lot of the lower levels. I got all the games right here. Syracuse at Florida State. Florida State obviously got some other things on their mind. Stanford and Pitt. This Florida State thing is going to be crazy, man. This is nuts.
Yeah,
Cal at Clemson.
we'll dive into that to wrap up the show.
Yeah. So that's what's coming up in the league, through Saturday, and all the big leagues are back engaged now. The Big Ten, the Big 12. Big 12, I didn't see really on there. Let me double check the Big 12 here. But they got to get back in here too, even though they're not the Big 12 anymore. But the Big 12 should have some good games this week. Yeah, Saturday the Big 12 dives back in. So all good fun hoop right now. So a lot of league play kicking off. It's exciting.
No, it definitely is. One thing also, you had in this Cal Pitt game, you had both teams only Pitt had only 8 turnovers and Cal had 6 turnovers. So both teams really took care of the ball really well.
Yes,
That
that's
was
surprising because Pitt will take some chances,
right.
which is this is really surprising.
Right. Yeah. No, it was just an incredible. And Pitt winds up shooting 50% from the floor from the field. They're down 16 at one point at home. It just goes to show you can't win a game in the first half. And when you've always said this too, when you're up 15, you either make the game ugly, or that winds up getting down to 8 or 7, and then it's a game. And it
Yeah,
goes
well, the
one
funny
or two
thing
ways.
is,
It never seems to stay in that 15, to 20
no.
point range. It never does. It
Well,
either goes one
well,
way.
in the huddle, you used to say to your kids when it was 15, it's either going to be 25 or 5.
Right. Yeah.
One of those two numbers is coming. Which one's it going to be?
Right.
I mean,
Exactly
that's
right.
that's a fact.
And you
But the
say, and
kids,
both coaches are saying the exact same thing to their
yeah,
team.
but the kids today look at you like, well, what do you know? My mom knows. So like, like they don't look at you like that. Like in the old days, kids were like, really? Is it going to get to that? And you're like, yeah. And how do I know that? I've been on the bench for 1,000 fucking games. That's how I know.
Right.
But today they look at you like, I don't know. I don't know. It's going to get to 25 or 5. Yeah, I guarantee it is.
Yeah. No,
That's how I know.
and one thing I liked about this Cal Pitt game also, you have both teams. Cal only takes 21 threes and Pitt takes 18. We're talking about before the NBA. They're just launching now, 50 threes a game, some of these teams. In
Sure.
college, I think the product is still better because you have teams that are, I'm not saying analytics is not playing a factor. Teams definitely are shooting more 3-point shots than they've had
Sure.
in
Sure.
previous generations, but it doesn't seem to have metastasized as much as it has in the NBA. For some reason, college is still watchable insane from that perspective.
Yeah, it's just that it's hard to build a real cohesive team. So it's funny when you watch the modern day college game, the offensive sets are so less complicated than they used to be, simply because you don't have these guys together as long, and the game is still about just one pass and a launch in a lot of respects. Except if you watch UConn's offense. UConn's offense is obviously very elaborate, and it's one of the reasons they won. Everybody talks about that talent, but they're also coached harder than probably anybody else in the country. And so the whole world's bitching about how hard people are coached, but then they all say they love Coach Hurley. Well, you can't have it both ways.
Right.
Nobody coaches their guys harder than he does. So which way do you want it? You want to be coached hard, or you want to, you want me to wipe your ass, or what do you want me to do here? You can't have it both ways.
No, it's true. Yeah. And then we'll end the show with this Leonard Hamilton situation going on where you have this
Yeah, I guess I love
NIL.
Leonard.
Yeah, you have this NIL situation where 6 players are suing Leonard Hamilton over this. And to me, I read an article on the AP News with this that how is Leonard Hamilton the one being sued? Is there something in writing? I mean, didn't the school promise this? It just seems like it's very murky and kind of vague, I think, this whole. And this is the thing that just irks me, I think. Now you have a guy like Leonard Hamilton. He's been a great coach in the ACC. He's had a tremendous amount of success. Now you have
Yep.
6 guys that are just going to try to dump a bucket of mud on his name. I think it's just kind of ridiculous, I think, that you have this situation going on currently. And but it's definitely an unfortunate one. I think you're going to see more of this. This isn't going to be the only time this is going to happen. This is
No,
going
of
to
course
happen
not.
every year.
Because right now, maybe those 6 guys are out of hoop. Maybe they're out of money. Who the hell knows?
Right.
I mean, Leonard Hamilton's reputation as a person has always been spotless. So I'm not saying he couldn't have made a mistake, but a verbal agreement is not an agreement.
Right.
And it should be written down. But this is where it gets crazy. So this is where we are. This is what we created, and it's our own fault in so many ways.
No, it definitely is. I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think, like you said, things are only going to get more insane and more asinine before they get to a level of stableness here. We mentioned
Sure,
in the last show that we
sure.
had. I think that's for certain that's going to be the case. Kind of a more crazy navigating,
Oh yeah,
dancing through the raindrops type of process, I think,
oh yeah,
before it gets stable here. So,
yeah. It's. I don't know if it's gonna get worse before it gets better. I think.
yeah, definitely. And yeah, just looking at some of these box scores here. Yeah, nope, it's definitely exciting. We're going to definitely be tuned in to college hoop from here until God through the tournament for sure. And like I said,
Oh yeah, first week of April.
it's funny because a lot of people post Christmas and New Year's, it's kind of like a dull, dreary time. But if you're college hoop fans like us, it's just getting
It's a
started.
great time.
Yeah, it definitely is. Between now and until all the way to the NBA Finals, June, you get hoop on all the time. So
You do.
it's definitely fun. And it only gets more exciting when you get to conference play and tournament time. So until then, this will definitely be a show we focus on our college basketball. But for all you NBA fans that are tuning in and watching, we'll definitely get to NBA when it comes to the play-in games and
Sure.
playoffs for sure. And also, Uncle
Trade
Nate,
deadline.
we're on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're on YouTube now. So we have 3 different avenues to get us. Whichever
How
way
do
you
they
want to
find out?
find
What exactly did they have to type in? Let's tell the audience.
Yeah, so just you got to just type in the name of the show, nephew and uncle basketball banter, and it'll come up. Our logo is displayed also on our YouTube video, so very easy to find us there. I think a good place to wrap up, Uncle Dave.
All right,
We'll leave it there. All right. Live long and prosper, and may the force be with you. All right.
Bach.